Scientists today said they had succeeded for the first time in drawing the three-dimensional structure of an enzyme the AIDS virus needs to spread its infection. This was hailed as, quote, an important and critical step along the pathway to anti-AIDS drug development. Development of such a drug appears to be a long way off, and in the meantime, doctors are looking at the latest study of AIDS and one group linked to the spread of the disease among heterosexuals. Harold Dow reports.
Experts studying the AIDS epidemic in New York City reported encouraging news today for some of this city's 250,000 intravenous drug users. The rate of AIDS infection among IV drug users is not as high as had been feared.
What we are finding is that 40, 45, 50% in New York City do not yet seem to be infected.
Even though they used drugs, IV drug users, for some time.
Absolutely. This is not a real easy virus to get. Some people have been lucky.
These new findings seem to contradict earlier assessments that the HIV-1 virus was moving uncontrollably among drug users and posing a threat to the heterosexual community. In today's issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association, 13 scientists and researchers report the AIDS infection rate among IV drug users has remained stable since 1984 at 55 to 60%.
The main message to drug users is that if you and your friends stop sharing drug injection equipment, start practicing safer sex, you can really slow down the spread of this virus.
And some drug users are getting the message. More of them are cleaning their needles with bleach and not sharing them. But some drug counselors are skeptical of today's report.
They're dying in the streets, and to have a report like this to say that the numbers have stabilized, there is no such thing.
New figures just out from the Centers for Disease Control count more than 86,000 AIDS cases in the United States since the disease was identified. Nearly 50,000 of those patients have died. Researchers say today's report on the stabilization of AIDS among IV drug users should be considered as a way to buy time for more prevention, since AIDS is still far from being conquered. Harold Dow, CBS News, New York.
In comedy and drama, Rock Hudson was a major movie and television star. When it was announced that Rock Hudson died of AIDS in 1985, some of the shame and mystery surrounding that disease disappeared. Now, a stunning verdict involving Rock Hudson's conduct may signal new challenges for the law and for society. David Dow has a report.
Sure. Mark Christian, the former live-in lover of actor Rock Hudson, was back in court today with his attorneys to argue for more millions in damages, in effect, to make a dramatic example of the case.
And I ask that you cause a headline. Rock Hudson jury does it again.
What it did yesterday was to award Christian $14.5 million, even more than he'd asked for. The jury said that was just compensation for what it called Rock Hudson's outrageous conduct in concealing from Christian that he had AIDS until a few months before his death.
It shows that people have a duty to disclose if they have AIDS to their lives. That's what it shows.
It's landmark in the sense that the size of the verdict is very large. What we're really seeing here is an important message that we have got to make honest promises to our partners.
Lawyers generally agree that it is indeed a landmark case, the first such verdict where the plaintiff did not actually develop AIDS. But some who've been involved in other AIDS cases worry about its implications.
Giving that kind of money because it's AIDS could be sending a message out that we should continue being hysterical about the disease when in fact we should not.
I think there's no question that the award is excessive in this case, given the fact that Mark Christian was not even infected with the virus and that he willingly exposed himself by engaging in unsafe sex.
The damage award could be reduced during the appeals process that's sure to follow. Meanwhile, many now expect a rash of similar cases, a part of Rock Hudson's legacy that he probably never envisioned. David Dow, CBS News, Los Angeles.
As more rains came today, there were flash flood watches for parts of Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri, Illinois, and West Virginia. In Kentucky, up to 10 inches of rain has fallen since Sunday. And even as the sun broke through the clouds today, Kentucky's governor asked for prayers. Christine Negroni explains why.
Farm animals were up to their necks in rural Lebanon Junction, where the Salt River was 25 feet above flood level. South of Louisville, the town of Boston became an island. Margaret King and her mother had to be airlifted out.
Well, when I went to bed last night, it was coming over the road and into the yard. And I slept 2.5 hours, and when I got up, it was all over the place.
Blue skies over Kentucky's state capital brought an end of 4 days of heavy downpours, but swollen rivers and creeks across the state are still flooding homes and businesses.
I'm sad for all those folks down there because they've lost everything. And I'm going to be sad if it gets here because I will lose some things.
National Guardsmen work to limit the damage statewide. 2/3 of the counties reported flooding, with nearly 300 roads closed by rising water.
We've got more rain forecast for Friday and Saturday, and the situation, the outlook is just not good right now.
Obviously, more flooding would precipitate more damage, and we simply do not need it.
Late this afternoon, workers began preparing for the cleanup. More rain will postpone that. Christine Negroni, CBS News, Frankfort, Kentucky.
A coalition of wildlife groups today asked the U.S. government to take urgent action to save the African elephant. They asked the U.S. government to ban imports of ivory and declare the elephant an endangered species. From Paris, Doug Tennell reports.
This baby elephant is an orphan. She was rescued from the bush just before the lions found her. Ears torn by thorn trees, her back is badly blistered from exposure to the sun. At this orphanage for elephants in Kenya, her keepers call her Fiona. They say she even suffers from nightmares. But Fiona is one of the lucky ones. She survived the day her herd was attacked by Kenya's ivory poachers. All that remains of her family can be found today in a store near you.
Elephants use these tusks. Nature didn't give them tusks just so they could provide ivory bracelets for humans.
Throughout Europe and the United States, these are the spoils of a war for ivory, a war that Africa is losing.
Almost all of the projections are pointing to extinction of the species in the early 1990s.
The ivory trade is a billion-dollar business, 80% of it illegal. At this customs warehouse, huge tusks are stacked alongside those of animals that were only a few months old when they were slaughtered. Poachers are often aided by corrupt officials and sometimes by African governments, as in South Africa, where thousands of illicit tusks are allegedly smuggled in from Angola. Guerrilla leader Jonas Savimbi admitted that ivory paid a portion of his war against the communist regime. Environmentalists have mounted a worldwide campaign to save the elephant.
Americans buy 1/3 of the world's ivory jewelry. Americans can help stop the slaughter.
But there has been no let-up in Africa's ivory war. The profits are immense, and there are no witnesses. Fiona is lucky because she found her way to one of the few places left in the world where baby elephant's best friend is man. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Paris.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. Tomorrow I'll be heading to Tokyo, and Bob Schief will be sitting in here. All next week we'll be broadcasting live and direct from Japan, reporting on Emperor Hirohito's funeral, Japan's dramatic rise to superpower status, and the effect that has had on this country and on you. Closer to home, we hope you'll stay tuned tonight for 48 Hours on Homeless Street. We believe it's a special hour that you and your family will not soon forget. 48 Hours on Homeless Street. That's tonight at 8, 7 Central Time. See you then.